and he opened up the stress reduction clinic at the University of Massachusetts School of Medicine, and he teaches this mindfulness training to people who are referred by their doctors. You can't just walk in there and say, okay, I'm ready for mindfulness classes. And they're usually people who are in severe pain, or dying from cancer, there's nothing else that has been able to help them. And the first practice in meditation is to, I was told, is to be conscious of your breathing. Just sit there and concentrate on your breath. And I'm thinking to myself, how is this going to reduce my stress? But the more you sit and the
Just
more
think
you
about it.
concentrate
Yes.
on, because your mind is constantly wandering. I mean, it goes all over the place. And the object that I've chosen and that I was taught to choose was my breath, going back to my breath. And after a while, you find yourself relaxing. Things start just opening up, and you do feel that relaxation. And when you're relaxed, your stress is being reduced.
You're right.
And when your stress is being reduced, you can do more. You can make more choices. It opens your
You can
life.
also be calmer about whatever it is that's going on in your
Correct.
life.
Exactly.
It's not what's happening, it's how you're handling it.
It's perception.
It's perception,
Yes.
and how you handle what's happening. And if you sit down quietly, take some deep breaths and concentrate on your breathing, you can probably get more relaxed. And when you're more relaxed, more answers come to you.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
true.
that
When-
is true.
When your mind is more relaxed is when you're all stressed and you can't think. But when you're relaxed, you can, and you can get better answers that way. Yes, absolutely.
So-
Yeah, and the value of like steady practice, like traditionally people, have an intention at least to practice every day. And so you sit and you follow your breathing and things arise. Like I often have the impulse to like make lists. Like, oh, I'm sitting still. This is a great time to make lists. All right, maybe not lists right now, but my mind really wants to make the lists. And so, for the first maybe year I was sitting, I was like, all right, let's make some lists, And then the next year I was fighting the making of the lists, And then for the next year I was sort of like somewhere in between. But what arises eventually is the observation of the impulse. Do you know what I mean? So, for example, if I have like an itch, right? Normally I just scratch it, I don't even think about it. But if I'm
Right.
sitting in meditation, I'm like, am I going to scratch that or not? Now, in most meditation practices, you just sit still, just don't move. But we actually have a very gentle practice, and the instructions are that if you're uncomfortable, you can move. You bring mindfulness to the moving also.
Right.
And so because of that gentle instruction, for a long time I went ahead and if my foot was asleep would move or whatever. But gradually I started becoming a little more interested in what would happen if I didn't. So for example, the itch would come up and I'd have a choice. I'd be like, okay, am I going to scratch it or not? And if I sat and watched it, I would begin to see how the itch appeared, stayed for a while, and then disappeared. And although an itch is very insignificant, like other things like rage, for example, are much more significant, and yet they do the same thing. They arise, they stay for a while, and then it diminishes. And so if you cultivate a lot of mindfulness, gradually you start to be able to hold your life mindfully when you really need to.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's sort of the benefit.
And something that I wanted to say was, initially I couldn't sit. And there were other places that I had called and I explained to them I couldn't sit. I was having very bad problems with my back and I had to lie down. And finally I got to the Rock Blossom Sangha and I asked them, is it okay if I lie down? And they said, whatever will get you comfortable.
Whatever works.
Right, you can do it.
Yeah.
And I would come in with all this paraphernalia and like build up like a little bed for myself. And it was you know, they say get yourself comfortable, and I got myself comfortable to be in a position where I wasn't falling asleep, and that's the most important part of it when you're lying down.
Sure.
They even have lying down meditations. I did that when I was taking the John Kabat-Zinn class. It's supposed to be, I think it's called the corpse posture, because you're lying.
Lying down.
Right, exactly. And you're still.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to have, about 2 months ago now, a surgery, and I can sit. I can sit for, an hour. I mean, I can sit, which is it's like a miracle for me, because
Wow,
I wasn't
wonderful.
I wasn't able to sit for
Wow.
a long time.
Wow.
But being able to bring in whatever I needed, and that the community embraced that, they encouraged it. The only thing I was told was that my head should be facing center, not the inside of the circle,
Right.
not my feet.
I see. I see.
And so I could deal with that. I don't want to offend anyone.
Let's go into the next clip now that we have from the DVD that you brought, if we can.
But I hope that very soon it will be in the dictionary, English. We have the word to be, but what I propose is the word to interbe, because it's not possible to be alone, to be by yourself. You need other people in order to be. You need other beings in order to be. Not only you need father, mother, but also uncle, brother, sister, society, but you also need sunshine, river, air, trees, birds, elephants, and so on. So it is impossible to be by yourself alone. You have to interbe with everyone and everything else. And therefore, to be means to interbe. Man is made of non-man elements. That is the insight brought about by the practice of mindfulness. If man is made of non-man elements, protecting the non-man elements is to protect man. There's no other way.
The fact of his having been through something like the Vietnam War forces him really to take heed of the crises of contemporary society, not just socially and politically, but also the ecological crisis and so on. And it's such an awareness, an integration of his Buddhist understanding with such issues that I find particularly heartening.
This person has got something to offer that people need to hear, that there's an ecological context to his philosophies and his teachings and his practices that is profound. And there's a language around it. The concept of interbeing is an ecological concept. And it's not alien to me at all. It's not, quote, spiritual to me at all. It's very real world. It's very necessary to the kind of work that I'm doing.
Many of the people in the environmental movement are very adversarial. They have to take a side. It's the side of protecting the environment. Of course, they've got a moral and ethical position that they're holding very clearly to. So here we're talking about reconciliation practice, non-duality. The hardest thing Thich Nhat Hanh has always said, the hardest position is the non-partisan position, not taking sides.
I've always been one of the rather angry activists. I've gotten in a lot of trouble too. And I think I have to rethink that after this week. I have to seriously rethink that. I want to get a copy of that letter. I want to think over a lot of Thay's remarks in regard to being peaceful in yourself before you address these issues. I've always thought that the anger was a very healthy thing, and I'm not so sure. The energy I've spent fighting lawsuits in recent years, I could have spent on environmental work instead.
I think a lot of people think of Buddhism, think of Zen as a very solo trip, just being on your cushion, just staring at the wall, just getting to know yourself, just getting in touch with your own feelings, or perfecting yourself. And that seems to me is a fairly uninteresting way to either investigate Buddhism or live your life. What you need to do is, in my own view, to take what you learn there out into the world.
If a person is not happy within himself or herself, how can the environment profit from him or her? And that is why we have to say two things. To protect non-man elements is to protect man. To protect man is to protect the non-man elements. That is the teaching of the Buddha.
Okay, that was interesting. A couple of points that he made was that about us all being connected. That was a very interesting point, because we are. A lot of people, I don't think, realize that every person is connected. We're all connected to each other and to everything else that exists in the world.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes one of the things that I reflect on sometimes is the garbage guys. And I know it's sort of silly, but
You reflect on the garbage guy.
I do. I think, you know, what the quality of my life would be if those guys weren't doing that.
That's right.
You know, it would be
Yeah,
appalling.
that's a good thought.
And it would be appalling really, really fast.
Oh, what about,
like a week without those guys doing that hard work they do every day.
Yes.
And that's like a lesson in interbeing for me. Like, my life completely depends on them.
Oh, sure.
You know?
Oh, yeah, because if they weren't around, we'd be back in the Middle Ages when they had the plague.
Yeah.
You know, and because garbage has to be removed, and it has to be placed somewhere away from where it's going to hurt anybody.
Right, exactly. So there's so much. So if you start looking deeply at anything you're tossing in your garbage, my mom said something to me recently. She said, "Don't throw anything away. There is no away." I was like,
She's got a point there.
Right? So you start to reflect and you're like, wow, you know, this thing really isn't going anywhere. It really isn't. It's going to go into a
staying.
landfill.
It's gonna be here somewhere.
Someone's going to deal with it in some way that we can start to, you know, increase our attention, but also to think of all the people, like the guy who invented the garbage truck and the guy who is drilling the fuel that allows the garbage truck to go, and the people who built the uniforms, and the guy who designed
Everything had to come
of
together.
web. I said neb.
Right.
The web of interbeing is so vast that you
Right.
start to really, I don't know, feel humbled and grateful, I think.
And you also have to think that so many things have had to happen for certain other things to happen. You know, like you had to do certain things, and you did, and I did, for all of us to end up together here tonight.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Certain things had to happen in all our lives for it to come together for us to do this tonight.
Yeah.
You know, if people looked at things that way, it's amazing. It's really
And all of the people that are involved in this show.
exactly. And then
and whose lives are being touched by this show.
exactly. And all kinds of things had to happen for all that to come together. And it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it makes me feel good.
Right,
Yeah.
makes me feel good too.
It does. And also now at the end, he was saying that we have to be happy in ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in order to be happy in the world, you cannot look to another person or a thing or a place to make you happy. Oh, if I could only get a new car, I'd be happy. Oh, if I'd only get that person to love me, I'd be happy. No,
If
you
I
have
only
to
lost 15 pounds, I'd be
Right.
happy.
Well, I'd be
right?
happiest.
Well, actually,
Happier.
what you're touching on,
Yeah, right.
and what you're touching on is actually the core teaching of Buddhism. Buddhism, the first, I mean, the story, you know, who knows what the truth of the story is, but the story is that the Buddha achieved enlightenment after sitting for a certain amount of time, having done various things in his life, and that the first teaching he ever gave after he did it was called the Four Noble Truths. And the Four Noble Truths, the first one is the truth that suffering is a part of our lives, that it exists, like it's going to be
And
there.
we're all going to suffer. We're
That's
all going to
right.
be happy, but we're all going to suffer.
And one of and the cause of suffering, and this is what Buddhism is all about, the Buddha said, is craving and aversion. So we believe, oh, if I lose those 15 pounds, like you really want, or if I get that car, oh, I want the car, I want the car, I want the car. And then you get the car, and you might be happy for a little while, or even if you stay happy, you start worrying about losing the car, but mostly you get bored with the car, you want something else. Or you're like, oh, I don't want that, I wish that person wouldn't talk to me anymore, or whatever. So the craving, the aversion, And it's natural, it's human, you know, it's what it is, but until we look at the mechanism of it, we're caught in it. But if we can look at the mechanism, it's like, oh, I see, I'm really craving a car again. You know, you have a little window of freedom into happiness with or without the car.
Right, of
Yeah.
course. I mean, I would like to get another car. I would like to upgrade. I would. But it's not going to kill me if I don't right away.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when it's meant for it to happen, then it'll happen. You know, when the opportunity will present itself when it's supposed to. Yeah, I know that. That's true. We have one more clip that we'd like to see if we can.
This is a beautiful clip.
If you don't practice sitting like a mountain, breathing like a flower, you cannot change the situation. And therefore, learn to sit, to breathe, to walk so that you are your best. You become your best. And peace can be the fruit of our practice. One person, when she is solid, fresh, and loving, can do a great deal of things. One person, to me, is a lot. And each of you care to practice. Each of you can become a real power for change. The miracle is not to walk on water or on burning charcoal, but to walk on earth. It shows us that life is a miracle. Life is something wonderful. If we are awake, if we are mindful, and then we are in touch with the wonders of life, you can be very happy just walking on earth. That is already a miracle. Peace is every step. The shining red sun is my heart. Each flower smiles with me. How green, how fresh, all that grows. How cool the wind blows. Peace is every step. It turns the endless path to joy.
That was interesting, yeah. It is a miracle that we're all here.
Yeah.
You know, and people that don't believe in God, how could you believe that this just happened? There is definitely a power, a force out there that makes it happen. You know, and
Primary mover.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, tell us more about Thich Nhat Hanh. He seems like a really interesting person. You're saying that he is. Did he sort of think about or came up with the Engaged Buddhism form of Buddhism?
Yeah,
and
more
he's
or
the
less.
spiritual leader of this form of Buddhism.
Yes.
And he is still alive at the age of 82
Yeah.
today, in 2007. He's 82 and he's still...
He's really healthy and
Really?
gives retreats all the time, all over the country, all over the world.
Where does he live?
Well, they have 3 monastery centers, a new one opening actually, but the main one is in France, Plum Village it's called. And he was exiled from Vietnam when he was 40. He was not allowed to return to the country. And so they set up this practice center in Bordeaux in France, and people came and gradually it grew. And then eventually they started another in Vermont and in California, and they just opened a practice center in upstate New York about 2-3 months ago.
So then he goes from one place to
He lives
another.
in one of those, exactly, and he gives retreats wherever, like there or other places around the world.
That's wonderful.
He is here right now
Yeah.
in New York State. right? New York?
Yeah,
He's up
Stone,
at-
I think it's in Massachusetts, maybe? It's
Massachusetts.
Stonehill
He's in
College.
New
I
York.
know
Make
he's
a
giving
copy
a
of the
retreat.
tape and send it to him.
Yeah, he might enjoy it.
He might.
I think he would.
I don't think he knows we're doing this, right?
We didn't discuss it with him,
Have you ever met him?
not personally.
No.
I've been on retreat with him, but only with a lot of people.
Right.
At this point, he's so famous that when he gives a retreat, as many people as the retreat will hold show up.
Really?
So,
Wow.
you know, they try and have pretty big ones. Sometimes they'll have, 1,000 people, but whatever the size is, it's always full at this point.
And he also, like the Dalai Lama, they have broken a little bit from tradition, and they've come out amongst the people and have brought to the masses, Buddhist, non-Buddhist, whatever, the need to look deeply, the need to practice peace, the need to love one another, the need to be mindful and concerned about one's own anger. And in this film, there were many Vietnam War veterans who said that the only thing that they knew when they thought of a Vietnamese person was they hated all Vietnamese. And today, I know plenty of people who say they hate all Muslims. They hate all...
There are people in countries that hate all Americans.
Yeah, hate all
Okay.
Americans. So, I mean, opening up talk, being able... That's another thing that Ty says, is we need to start opening up discussions so that the world could get to know who we are and we could get to know who the world is.
Yeah.
And look at them very mindfully.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, you were saying earlier that you do a lot of meditating at
The Sangha.
At the Sangha, and explain, like you were talking about a walking meditation and other Tell us exactly why, because maybe our audience might want to indulge in some of these meditations. Like, for instance, at one time I explained about transcendental meditation. Do you use that?
No, not exactly.
Okay, well, transcendental meditation is basically a meditation with a
mantra.
Mantra. That's
Right.
the word I was looking for. Thanks. Anyway, but now tell us what do you do when you do a walking meditation? Walk around in a circle or something?
You're mindful.
And you're mindful.
Right. You feel every step. I know that I have difficulty walking. So when I put my foot down, the heel goes down. I have a plate in my right ankle.
Whoa.
So I find it difficult to put that heel down and then feel your foot roll up.
Now, but be mindful of your foot hitting the floor.
And the ground and the energy coming up from the ground, whatever is going to make you mindful. We've had some Dharma discussions where people have shared about the mindfulness walking meditation, and some people have chosen to take that into their daily lives and say, I have to walk so many blocks to the subway, and I'm going to practice walking meditation, walking to the subway. And you'd be surprised what opens up to you. All of a sudden, you see a little green bud in springtime, or as the earth is starting to open up in springtime, you see the crocuses coming out.
As you become more mindful of what's around you.
Exactly.
Well, we
It's a
should be,
practice.
actually. We're supposed to be mindful of, if you're walking down the street, you should know what's going on around you. And you should know if somebody else is crossing the street, or if there's a car coming down the street, especially for your own safety as well as anything else.
Right.
Sure, if you're paying attention. And it's also a process of just returning to yourself. I think that's what mindfulness really has done for me. Like, you can get very scattered in life and full of thoughts of, I don't know, worry about work, or am I going to be late, or taxes, or, so just that practice of returning to this moment of saying, I'm here, I'm not going to solve this issue walking down the street. I'm really not. And I don't want to lose this piece of my life. worrying about something that I'm not doing right now. So
And
that
you can't
possibility
do
of
anything
being
about it at the
here,
moment, yeah.
exactly, and being with you, like to be present with you rather than be like thinking about, you know, 1,000
Being off
other
somewhere
things.
else. Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's about being alive, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And knowing that you're alive.
And knowing that you're alive and noticing all the things that nourish us all the time. You know, there's so much really wonderful stuff, and our society has a tendency to focus on the negative. Like we like to talk about it a lot,
Oh,
or
sure.
argue, or have
Yes.
opinions, or and not even notice that, you know, someone. It's amazing when you look what people do. They'll walk and they'll pick something up and set it down in another place to be closer to someone. People do nice things all the time, sort of off the radar, or just a million things.
Yeah, they do nice things too, and then there are others that don't do nice things. They do not so nice things.
Yes.
And that's part of of exactly what we're talking about. It's what behaviors have I been practicing that I may want to continue practicing because it's giving me a beneficial, you know, effect, or what things are causing other people pain and suffering. So how do I change that? And I like to always look at the positive stuff. And that's one of the reasons that I really enjoy this practice also. I'm somewhat of a Pollyanna, but not 100% Pollyanna. But I like to look at the positive things. And we all know that in life, everything works out. Bad things happen to good people, good things happen to bad people, whatever the case may be. Living my life as fully as I can possibly live it is my goal.
Yes.
And if I'm living my life fully, then I'm able to give fully
That's right.
and appreciate what's given to me fully.
Right.
So thank you, all of you people in the studio. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, ladies, for being here. This has been a most interesting discussion. Thank you to our audience.
Thank you.
I hope you join us at the Sangha.
Maybe sometime I will.
Okay, you're fully invited.
Well, thank you very much.
Every
give
Sunday
me a
night,
call.
6:30.
Sometime I'll come over.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be
Every
great.
Sunday I'll pick you up.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. It's been so
Okay.
interesting, and I'm glad that we did this. It's been an interesting program. I did other programs on Buddhism also, and this one is another one to add to that collection. It's really interesting, and thank you so much for doing
Oh,
this.
thank
with
you.
me. And everyone,
Thank you.
I hope that you all enjoyed this, and have a good night.